So out of the three technologies that TBL pulled together to create the World Wide Web, one of them specifically, well, his particular implementation of one of them turned out to be the killer app. And it really drove popularity of this particular document sharing system. And before I say what it is, I have to say that a lot of my students often react to this as, like, really? Like, that's it? So keep in mind that it was a different time, and the web in the very beginning wasn't the web that we know and love today. The killer app was simply hypertext. Just clicking on a link on a web page, which just brings you to another web page. And yeah, we thought it was pretty cool. So the reason why it was so compelling, especially for researchers and academics, was because hypertext offered a whole new way to think about citations. So instead of writing out formal bibliographic references in MLA or APA style, you could just link directly to another research paper, assuming it was somewhere out there on the internet already and accessible by a URL. And remember, URLs was another one of Tim Berners-Lee's inventions. TBL's original version of the web was to give everyone tools for free and for them to contribute and consume documents on the internet. So if you think about it from the consumer point of view, say you're interested in a particular subject. You open that free software, the World Wide Web, and you would simply type in a human-friendly web address, a URL, and up pops someone's research paper on the subject. So right there, that's cool. No special software except your free web browser, and it comes up fast, right on your screen from a computer that could be thousands of miles away. So technically, that in and of itself wasn't hard to do, but remember, in the early 1990s, no one had a system to do just that so quickly, so easily, and for free. So maybe that in and of itself was a killer app, but that was just the beginning. So you read the paper that you're interested in, and if it's a good paper, it brings up some interesting points and makes some compelling arguments. And so, of course, assuming that it's written with some level of academic rigor, there are citations that point to other research on which the author relied to make their own points. So in the hard copy world of paper documents and journals, that's where your interest in the subject would be put on hold. It should be obvious why. But with the web and its linking behavior, the clickable citation that instantly brought you to any of the cited papers, well, that was the killer app. And that's what gave the system some real momentum. So the closest analogy I can think of to things you're familiar with would be endlessly scrolling on something like TikTok or Instagram. You just keep going down and down. And granted, scrolling is different than clicking on links, but it was the same idea. It had that addictive quality to it, going from one research paper to another, like going down some rabbit hole on whatever was your favorite topic. So yeah, in those days, yeah, that was pretty cool. So it was back in August of 1991 that he published the standards, the instructions, if you will, on academic listservs and Usenet groups, and he made the software available to everyone via FTP. He also encouraged, other scientists and open source developers to write their own document servers and browsers. He also published everything on the first website at info.cern.ch, which served as kind of a user's manual for the web, explaining what it was, how to install the software, and how to create your own documents that would work on the system. Still though, even though the web blew up in popularity over the next few years, remember, that was still just among researchers and the development community. There was still a few more things that had to come together for the explosive growth that would lead to us, the rest of everyone on the planet, being drawn to this thing called the web. So immediately after TBL published the standards and the software, early adoption didn't come easy. Earlier, back in 1991, TBL's original software only worked on the Next computers, which were expensive and rare. So but even before it went truly worldwide, within CERN, the web got off to a rather slow start. So to make it more accessible, a student intern at CERN, Nicola Pello, helped develop the line mode browser, which was a simple text-based browser that could run on just about any computer. And that opened the door to others to use and experiment with the web, even if they didn't have fancy machines like the next computer. So meanwhile, Tim Berners-Lee and others were promoting the idea wherever they could. He posted software and the documentation publicly and helped start an email listserv called www.talk, which kind of became the go-to place for developers around the world to share ideas and ask questions and report their progress on this thing called the web, or what later we would call the web. But one of the first major real-world uses came in late 1991 when the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center in California launched the first web server outside of Europe. And they used it to share basically their particle physics papers and making the web useful for a real audience and showing how it could be valuable in an academic research setting. So by the end of 1992, over 20 different web servers had gone online, and most of them were at universities or research institutions. But compared, of course, to the millions of web servers that exist today, that was just a tiny blip. Still, that was the beginning. There was also a handful of other web browsers developed by other people. There was Airwise, which was a graphical browser developed by some Finnish students in early 1992. Voila www, developed by Pelwan Wei, which was a graphical Unix browser, and other ones that I remember like Midas and Samba were also early graphical browsers. Most of them ran on Unix systems, and there was still no web browser for Windows, because that wouldn't come until 1993 with the release of Cello. So for a while, the web remained in the hands of just developers and scientists and some hobbyists, people with the tools and the knowledge to compile their own software. So adoption was still concentrated to research labs and universities, but the foundation was already laid and the momentum was just starting to build. And then, a little later in 1993, everything changed.